the other hand, has not. Israel has actually apologized for accidentally striking ISIS soldiers and has offered them logistical support and also medical.
Logistical support. Oh, the medical thing. The medical. He's such a fucking liar, man. Sorry, what is the evidence that those people who crossed the southern border were ISIS? You fucking liar, bro. Hasan hate watch. Oh no.
No matter how hard you try to do this Israeli propaganda from the beginning, Israel is literally ISIS. Israel is both aligned with ISIS, and Israel, in its conflation of a religion, ISIS with Islam, Israel with Judaism, its destruction of cultural monuments, its destruction and lack of care or consideration for a civilian population is unironically exactly like ISIS. Okay? A militant resistance group against an apartheid state that is the population conflation of a religion, ISIS with Israeli propaganda.
The conflation of a religion, what? Like the Islamic Republic of Iran, like the Islamic fucking state of Pakistan. What? How many countries call themselves like the Islamic Republic or the Islamic State? What do you mean conflation? Hamas is an Islamic movement, bro. You sure you want to use that one? What else did you say there?
Israel is literally ISIS. Israel is both aligned with ISIS.
When is Israel aligned with ISIS? What the fuck are you talking about? Is this like, I know there's this conspiracy theory that people come out with where they say, oh, ISIS has never attacked Israel. They have, by the way. There have been stabbings that have happened in Israel that have been claimed by ISIS. There have been locals in Palestine and Israel who have been radicalized by ISIS and gone out and killed people. Like this has happened more than once. It's just that, do people think it's to do with Syria? Like with Assad? Because even then, that's a really bad statement, because if anyone actually did work fairly close with ISIS or did things to help ISIS, it was actually the Assad government. You understand that, right? So during the Iraq War, one of the reasons America started getting really, really angry with Assad was because he was not doing anything to stop ISIS militants from training in Syria and crossing the border. And not only that, but they also were able to do that with fake passports, okay? Like they were allowed to cross, and it is now quite evident that there were people close to the Assad government, or even people within the Assad administration, who were actually doing that, who were allowing these militants to go and cross the border to fight in Iraq. And a lot of these people became ISIS. When the protests just began, in the Arab Spring, when people were indiscriminately firing on protesters and arresting them arbitrarily and detaining them, Assad also simultaneously released a bunch of prisoners, many of whom would go on to become members of and founders of ISIS, like leaders. And he did that. He released these people who were Islamic extremists long before they started ISIS. He released these people because he wanted to use them to like contaminate the goodwill of the movement. Decree 61, it was called. So it's just interesting that at the same time that Assad was like one of the only people in the entire world to still keep trade routes open with ISIS when they were actually in places like Raqqa and other parts of Syria, like Deir ez-Zor. They were still trading in wheat and oil and allowing ISIS to use the banking system and things like that when everyone else was closing it. So where is Israel collaboration? The only thing he's going to say is it's the same thing. I think it's because in the Syrian civil war, there were people from the south who were largely, I was one of the only ones, Sundowner, thank you. Yeah, Decree 61, this was where they released a bunch of Muslim Brotherhood-aligned prisoners and Islamic extremists because they wanted them to fuck with the protests. Hassan's going to say that they aligned with ISIS probably because Israel gave medical treatment to a few people in, about 5,000 of them at the southern border in 2012, 13, 14, 15. Over 1,000 of whom were children, many of whom were women, many of whom were civilians, but an unspecified number of them were potentially al-Nusra or FSA or Druze militants, but apparently that's aligning with ISIS, I guess.
and Israel in its conflation of a religion, ISIS with Islam, Israel with Judaism, its destruction of cultural monuments, its destruction and lack of care or consideration for a civilian population is unironically exactly like ISIS.
Bro.
Okay? A militant resistance group against.
You have to be so ignorant to think that anything about the way that Israel operates and fights and everything is comparable to fucking ISIS, man. What the fuck? What the? It's just so ridiculous. Israel is Jewish ISIS. Is he still going to say a resistance group to the apartheid? Is he saying? When did he say this? 10 days ago. Okay, so this is before the protests.
Care or consideration for a civilian population is unironically exactly like ISIS. Okay? A militant resistance group against an apartheid state that is doing a genocide is not closer to ISIS. A violent settler colony that is doing an apartheid and also conducting a genocide is infinitely closer.
I wonder if he's still going to characterize Hamas in this way as the anti-apartheid resistance group. Now that people in Gaza seem to be in fairly increasing numbers, the protests look like they've been bigger every day. Even they don't seem to agree with it anymore.
Closer to ISIS.
Is he going to elaborate on Israel aligning with ISIS? I want to see what he says there.
But yeah, keep doing this. I'm sure people will believe you eventually. So much propaganda here. USA. Much propaganda here. USA attacked Yemen again. Stage 1 is over and there's no agreement on stage 2. Facts. Womp womp. Whom you shield. Well, Jewish students that you called inbreds were attacked on campus. So Jewish students that are called inbreds. It is pretty funny that these guys just like live in a fantasy world. I've never called Jewish students inbreds.
You did laugh at those guys who said that they were called inbred and attacked. And they were Jewish students. They were not like fucking Haredi settlers or whatever.
Or Jews inbreds in general. I call the KKK inbred in the same way that I call the Jewish KKK, violent, rabid, right-wing, ultra-nationalist settlers inbred. Okay? That's it. You can perhaps lying about this and saying that I claim that all Jews are inbred will make you feel better. You know what I mean? Oh, this is the same guy from that. Did you see the Asman Gold response? Why you always talk about Asman? Yeah, Hamas has literally fought ISIS. Israel, on the other hand, has not. Israel has actually apologized for accidentally striking ISIS soldiers and has offered them logistical support and also
logistical support. Oh, the medical thing. He's such a fucking liar, man. Sorry, what is the evidence that those people who crossed the southern border were ISIS? You fucking liar, bro. This is Hassan's whole thing where, like, in the Syrian civil war in the earlier years, about 5,000 people total over a period of a few years went into the Golan Heights. They approached the Golan border and wanted treatment because they were injured from Assad. That's what happened, okay? That's what happened. And the Israelis let them in because they weren't fighting with those people. Now, it seems that some of them might have been linked to al-Nusra. We just don't know, though, because some of them would have also been secular militants against Assad. Some of them will have been Druze militants, okay? Some of them might have even been, like, there's quite a few of them, okay? But also, quite a lot of them were children. A lot of them were women. Most of them would have been civilian. But apparently, like, Israel should just allow these people to die because, God forbid, one of them is ISIS and you put a fucking bandage on his leg. Like, come on. What logistical support? You talked to one of those medical people as well. Yeah, I did. Southern Front in 2014 didn't have many secularists or Druze. How much ISIS was in the Southern Front in 2014? My understanding is that most of those people who were treated were women and children, but hey, okay. And it's not as if these guys would have turned up at the fucking southern border or would have turned up at Golan in fucking ISIS uniform, like dressed up as ninjas or whatever they used to do. Did he get the... Did he get this in the wrong way round? Did he get this the wrong way round? I don't even think anyone in Israel, when they said that some of these people might have been al-Nusra, they were clear about that. I don't even think it was really pushed forward that some of them might have been ISIS. He got this the wrong way around. It was ISIS who attacked an IDF unit and then apologized, apparently, according to a former commander, Moshe Yalon. They clashed with an ISIS-linked group. What's the ISIS-linked? ISIS-affiliated fighters. There was one case where Daesh opened fire and apologized. A short gun battle, the Israeli military attacked Syrian jihadist group Khalid ibn al-Walid with airstrikes and tank fire, killing 4 of them. This was the first... Oh, so Israel actually fought them, though. Israel fought them back. What the fuck? Interesting. And it wasn't even ISIS. It was a group that affiliated with ISIS in 2016. Okay. Meanwhile, the Jerusalem attack in 2017, that was an ISIS member attack in Jerusalem. Knife attacks in Jerusalem's old city against Israeli police. ISIS claimed responsibility. Did ISIS apologize for this one? Maybe Israel apologized for it. Sorry, our soldiers got in the way of your mujahideen. The fuck, man. I didn't know he was actually that deep into the sauce. That's like an insanely outlandish, like, conspiratorial claim that ISIS are connected to Israel, that they give them logistical support and shit. What the fuck? Okay.
Full support. You can look this up.
Yeah, where are you looking up?
You can find this information if you would like to.
Well,
but hey,
I just looked it up and I found out that you mixed the order around where you thought that Israel apologized to ISIS when actually it seems like an ISIS affiliate group fired on Israel and Israel fought back and killed a bunch of them, 4 of them. And then the ISIS affiliate group apologized, probably because they didn't want to escalate into a conflict with Israel. They were more comfortable fighting with armies they thought they could defeat. Okay. Then you lied about ISIS not attacking Israel, even though they have. They've claimed attacks in Israel, like in Jerusalem, on Israelis. And the medical aid thing is just, again, show me some evidence that when Israel's giving medical treatment to these people at the border, show me some evidence that, like, Israel thought they were assisting, like, ISIS militants in any large number. Come on. Because I don't know where that one comes from. As far as I knew, it was people who were mostly civilian and other people who may have been linked to some other armed groups. But we don't know which ones.
as is the case, I will always use a bottom of the barrel troll to educate the masses.
Ah. I'm educated. I'm feeling it.
But I saw multiple once again clips of you saying,
Wonder where you got that education from. Twitter. Maybe from there. Who knows?
the word Imber with no context, so it must be true. Yeah.
This is the thing he's talking about, by the way, the medical aid, or I guess this is tied in with the logistical support he's talking about. This is what he's talking about. Wait, why is my thing frozen? What's interesting is that he's actually doing Hezbollah's line. Nasrallah used to describe ISIS as like Zionism, basically. Yeah. even though Hezbollah and Assad also have, there's much more evidence that they actually did let ISIS off the hook quite a few times. Operation Good Neighbor, humanitarian aid in Syria. Maybe that kid was ISIS. Who knows? 3,000 people in field hospitals, mostly in northern Israel, since 2013. I thought it was 5,000. Maybe it reached 5,000 after up to 2019. It's not even that. It's like so few people over a period of what, like 7 or 8 years? 2 clinics in Syria. Clothes, baby formula, medical supplies, diesel, fuel, and generators. Food, diapers. Oh, there's that. That one's definitely ISIS. That's an ISIS person for sure, 100%. No one can say we're helping terrorists. Now, I believe the controversy of this, which actually even Hassan doesn't seem aware of because he's spoken about this before, but he left out the fact that there was one IDF general, I think it was a fairly high up person, who said that there were some militants, a completely unspecified number, who were given rifles, like small arms, when they were sent back after medical treatment. He doesn't say how many of them, but that's like the one thing that you could maybe get them on, that maybe one of them was like an ISIS person, or 5, 10. But I don't believe it was ever actually confirmed who they were, apart from that they were posed as anti-Assad rebels. Because these militant groups that were fighting against Assad in the civil war were not at war with Israel. They weren't fighting with Israel. While there have been more credible reports that Israel is secretly providing aid to moderate rebel groups that are fighting both the Islamic State and Syrian President Bashar Assad's forces, Israel has officially remained entirely mum on the issue. Do they mean mute? Like, okay. Like, that was how I understood it. The way I understood it was that the people in the south who were actually getting access, who were allowed through to get medical treatment, would have been the more moderate rebels and moderate families. Because again, it's like you're going into Israel, but rip. Chaos agents, true.
That argument isn't valid. You have Palestinians/Arabs agree with Israeli actions. Wait, what?
What?
That's amazing.
That was a very silly comment from the
Yeah.
chatter, but okay.
Palestinians fucking love getting killed by Israeli bombs. Like, they love.
Okay. We're past the ISIS part. Wow. Well, I feel educated. Thank you, Hassan. All right, you can clip that if you want. I don't know. Fuck. Maybe a bit too long. Too long for Twitter. Okay. Do I want to watch? Oh, God. Oh, no. Do you guys want? Oh, no. Wait, where? Oh. Do I really want to get educated a bit more? Do we? Oh, no. Is Gaza turning on Hamas? Are they? What do you think about former Israel Defense Minister Yalon saying that he would rather have ISIS to Iran and Syria? I don't care. I don't base my conjecture on what actually happened down to quotes. I don't do that. Someone said some dumb shit. Wow. That must mean that Israel had that must mean that Israel actually in practice provided logistical support to ISIS and apologized for attacking them even though they didn't. Yeah, okay.
And time again, it is shown that Hamas is more popular in the West Bank in the eyes of the Palestinians in the West Bank than they are in Gaza. There needs to be a reason for that. Part of the reason is because, of course, people attribute the crimes of Israel in terms of like famine or in terms of the horrible conditions to administrative failures of Hamas.
Oh no, I need context for that one. Okay, I need context. He was the Israeli defense minister. Okay, Tutan, then show me. Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence that Israel collaborated with ISIS. Just show me. Show me.
All right, let's move on from Trump.
Show me anything other than what they gave medical aid to an unspecified number of people, mostly civilians, and maybe get the order correct when you're talking about who attacked who and apologized, even though they still fought. And also remember that ISIS have claimed attacks in Israel, right?
Let's get to Gaza, but this time, an issue in Gaza that the mainstream is really excited to cover. For once, the same mainstream in the Western world.
Can I argue that 500 food trucks a day went into Gaza during the war? Can I actually argue that? Can I argue this, Tutan? Because the defense minister said it, didn't he? Defense minister said they wanted 500 trucks a day in Gaza. That must mean it happened. It definitely happened. It happened. It's real news. The defense minister said it. Wow.
Did not cover the UN Human Rights Report, 49 pages detailing with firsthand testimonies and direct CCTV footage, like direct evidence that Israel has been doing to the Palestinians as a weapon of war and also simultaneously trying to the Palestinian population by killing, by shutting down hospitals where there are in vitro fertilization centers, by killing like newborn.
Where's he going to talk about the protests? We did the report. Come on. Protests.
Archive of that I'm pretty sure international human rights groups are using as well. They primarily focus on archiving those that Israeli occupying force soldiers themselves post on the timeline. Okay. The defense minister Katz, who so far does not have an ICC arrest warrant, told Palestinians in Gaza they will lose their homes and more land if they don't join the
protests.
The protesters in Gaza are quite explicitly calling for an end to Israel's total siege, which is creating famine conditions and is in its fourth week. For Israeli officials to uplift those protests and not lift the siege is as cynical as it gets. Yes.
Yes. Yes, that's what they're... Okay. Oh, he's doing the whitewash again, isn't he?
Also, this is in Hebrew and not Arabic. What resident of Gaza is, I mean, there are some residents of Gaza that speak Hebrew, but understand that if Israel is speaking in Arabic, they're doing propaganda to the Arab population. It's usually long.
Okay, we have translators. No big deal.
To you.
Okay.
There are the amount of dedicated pollsters that go into Gaza and into the West Bank.
Where are the protests?
Even this genocide, and still actively survey the population. Any party
protests
is choosing to militarily resist against the Israeli occupation.
Okay, let's go here. Random place.
How do you know this? Not only do I read, I also talk to Palestinian people. So what's my position? It's very simple. I do not have any loyalty to any party. I do not care about who governs Gaza or the West Bank beyond the Palestinian people themselves. I want Palestinian people to have autonomy. I want Palestinian people to have sovereignty. That's what I care about. So if there is a...
Okay, that means you have no problem accurately portraying the protests as what they are, which is anti-Hamas protests. Okay? If you're not allied with any party, you should have no problem. Okay. I'm ready.
Major push. Okay, a major push to do elections. Or last elections were in 2006. Sorry, I said 2005. It was in 2006. If there's a major push to vote for someone else into a position of power, and it certainly is not going to be Fatah, okay, then fine. Like, that's great. Very controversial take us on. I know. Very controversial. I don't know why a lot of people have mistaken Western defenders of Palestine and Palestinians as being dick riders entirely for Hamas. Okay? There is no...
It's because you downplay their crimes. It's because you misrepresent their views and their goals. It's because you, quite a lot of you, I don't know if Hassan's done it yet, but quite a lot of you also misrepresent people who are protesting against them and downplay that. So yeah, that's probably, there's a lot, you drop a lot of fucking breadcrumbs for people to think you support Hamas, which not to mention all the other people who are not as clout focused as Hassan is, and actually have a bit more of a lid off of their more extreme views, and that they just openly support Hamas. Like, Second Thought supports Hamas. His friends in the D program all support Hamas. Bad Empanada supports Hamas. Noah Samson supports Hamas. So at the very least, it's like an acceptable position to you, but okay.
Like, it doesn't matter. To me, Hamas is but a name, okay? It's a name to a movement that is choosing to militarily resist against the Israeli occupation. You can say all these people are pro-Hamas across the board, but I have no political allegiances beyond the fact that they are the only game in town, and they are actively defending against Israeli incursions in the Gaza Strip.
How can you still think this? It's so, because he's not going to listen to what the protesters are saying. He's not going to. Really? They're defending, are they? How? What defenses exactly are happening there? Like, I'm sorry, why did Israel go into Gaza again? Whose decision sparked that little escalation? Huh. Did Israel just get bored one day and out of the fucking blue just decide to wipe out Gaza and say that they're going to get rid of Hamas? Oh no, actually it was the Hamas like crossed the border with 5,000 people and killed killed like over 1,000 of them, and then said they want to do it again and again and again and again, and then they ran into Gaza and went into some fucking tunnels underneath the city and said, "Hey, come get us. There's a lot of civilians between between you and us, but come get them." I thought that's what happened.
That's it. It's that simple. Just like if the Palestinians came together and had a free and fair election in a future, in a positive future that seems so far away right now, and they all universally voted for Hamas, I'm not going to sit here and be like, that's up. That's it. So there it is. Mohammed Shahada, getting many questions about the demonstrations in Gaza. So here's my full assessment of the protest, their potential.
Why this guy doesn't like it? This guy thinks they're fucking Fatah operatives and shit. Fuck me.
Genuineness and spontaneity versus outside influence, motives and goals, and their ability to actually challenge Hamas or bring the war close to an end.
I'm not politically affiliated. Meanwhile, here's why all these anti-Hamas protests are inauthentic. Yes.
Seem to have started spontaneously in small numbers and in limited areas. Their grievances are unique. People are tired, desperate for the genocide to end at any cost. Many want Hamas to step down from government to take away Israel's pretext for the siege and killing. But the protests quickly drew the interest and influence of external actors keen to exploit Gazans' despair and pain, and this may end up undermining the movement instead of helping, e.g., Israel demanding Gazans take to the street or face death, land theft, and forever war will backfire.
Why don't you just watch the protesters? Why don't you just see what they have to say? Surely.
That's what Israel Katz said. F Hamas the... No, dude, that's not how this works. If every single Palestinian, once the occupation is lifted, is like, we want to vote for Hamas, that's not up to me, okay? And that's not up to you either. It is unironically Western chauvinism for you to think like, no, you don't understand. Like, that's really up. Like that, Hamas gets in, he gets, wait, what? Dude, you are a through and through, okay? There's no world in which like, you can entertain this attitude, okay? This attitude is saying 9/11 was awesome. It's no different. You wouldn't say that to my face? Yes, I would. I'd spit on your face, you little cowardly baboon. Get the out of here. You're an internet warrior. What the f do you think? Who the f do you think you are, big tough guy with an anonymous account online? Get the f out of here. You are lower than the shit I stepped in this morning, okay?
He's such a molder,
Oh,
man.
you want to say that to my face, dude?
Oh, no, this is AI editing. Teuton, please, just don't panic, okay? Please. Please. No amount of AI made him describe Hamas in 2025 as the defenders against Israel. Shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. AI didn't force him to say that, okay?
I'd show you my compilation, little bitch. Anyway,
Ooh.
biggest loser of all time. At least I put my face out there and my name out there. You know what I mean? You're anonymously chirping. Oh, you wouldn't say that to my face. Yeah, I'm actually 6'8", 350 pounds, okay? I'm shredded too. Fuck you up. I have a black belt. Anyway. When Israel suddenly blesses Palestinians' rights to expression against Hamas while detaining, maiming, and murdering those who exercising the same right against the occupation, it discourages people from taking part in the protest lest they be called Israel's collaborators. An apparent Fatah influence is detectable in some of today's protests with the chant Ya Shia being added.
We saw that. People, wait, Fatah never left Gaza though. Leaders did. Some of them got thrown off buildings. Lots of people who opposed Hamas got kicked out or killed. But it's not like people who support Fatah or have like leanings towards them just disappeared. There are lots of people. We saw this from the March of Return. There were a whole bunch of people there who either had Fatah like flags or there were pictures of them standing next to photographs of like Marwan Barghouti and shit like that. So, okay. That is very funny though that they're calling Hamas Shia. The whole meme there is that, first of all, Sunnis generally don't like Shiites because they see them as apostates if they're extreme enough. The other issue is that them calling them Shia is like basically an allusion to them being stooges of Iran. Like they take Iranian money and they do like the Ayatollah's bidding and shit like that, so they call them Shia, yeah.
Accusing Hamas of being Iranian stooges
there we go.
was popular in 2007 amongst Fatah partisans during the Fatah-Hamas conflict that saw the latter take over Gaza.
Yeah, but the protest leaders so far have generally said that they're not politically affiliated, so.
Saying Hamas are Shia because Iran offers material support to Hamas. Israeli media identify one of the protesters today as someone whose family affiliated with Mohammed Dahlan's Fatah. Similarly, a Fatah influence on the demonstrations will make it easier for Hamas to dismiss/delegitimize them as pushed by an external agenda. So Israel
again, that's if you assume that Fatah is external to Gaza. They're not. They've always existed in Gaza. Just because a bunch of them kept their heads down, okay, or realigned, that doesn't mean they don't exist in Gaza.
Actually pushing in favor of these protests and saying like, you'll get if you don't take to the streets and demand that Hamas gets.
Pretty sure I saw vids, people saying fuck Fatah and Hamas. Well, I saw one of the village elders saying that, but if you want to give me a link to protesters chanting that, that'd be interesting. Generally, they don't seem like they're supporting any particular movement. I don't know though. Is it true that like calling Hamas Shia is just a Fatah thing, or is that more? Do other people do that as well? I don't know.
Cast aside is unironically going to cause people to not protest against Hamas. So that's the inherent irony here. That's it. That is the issue that a lot of people are not recognizing. But the Houthis are Shia, or am I wrong? Yes, they are. They are also backed by Iran, and Palestinians seemingly love those guys. So I don't think that there's a real sectarian attitude here. They don't give a shit. For them, it's like we're getting dominated by Israel. We're getting murdered by Israel. Anyone that stops this is good. Anyone that stops this is my ally. Because that is the highest order of.
So why are they so mad at Hamas?
Of priority.
If they're the defenders.
Now, what's ironic about these protests also is that like and this is something that a lot of people failed to recognize with October 7. People attribute October 7 to Hamas, and in large part, it was the Hamas militant wing that participated in the militancy, participated in the kidnapping. Having said that, however, in spite of their much smaller sizes and much smaller influence, every other facet of Palestinian political groups also participated in October 7 in a united front. October 7.
But that's because, yeah, that was still led by Hamas, though. Is he going to? What's he suggesting there? Ever since the March of Return that they kind of assembled into this unitary council, but I think that council remained after the march is finished, which is why a bunch of them were there. Also, it's still Hamas's government. It's still their, they still run the health ministry, the interior ministry, the defense ministry, the security ministry, sorry.
7 wasn't just conducted by
police
Hamas and
force,
Islamic Jihad.
like-
October 7 was actually conducted by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and numerous other even smaller formations. There were Fatah members that were also involved on October 7. So the idea that HTS Andy, calm down. What? HTS Andy's calm
See,
down.
he's not going to deny that it was obviously Hamas's project, though, right? Like that it was the plans for October 7th, and we know this from captured documents as well. We know that Sinwar and Dave basically kept the specifics of that plan to themselves all the way until like a few weeks before. There are some people, operatives in Hamas, who didn't even know it was going to happen until like on the day or the day before, because they didn't want it to leak.
The idea that like that this is just Hamas. Hamas itself also has maintained 2 positions that I think are quite significant. Okay, position number one, the release of political leaders, including more popular political leaders than anyone Hamas has ever been able to produce from Israeli prisons. Political leaders who are directly at odds with Hamas, okay, both in ideology, but political leaders nonetheless that are interested in the end to the occupation. The second point that is very important is that Hamas has also said that they would disarm and dissolve their political apparatus if Israel ended its occupation tomorrow. So it's not like these guys are saying, we're staying here, steadfast, no matter what happens. Okay? He caught misleading his audience about calling you a terrorist supporter. You think
Again, the disinformation tracker. Yes, let's go. All right. This is what they said. They said Hamas officials says that they would lay down their arms if an independent Palestinian state is established. Would agree to a truce of 5 years or more. Convert into a political party. Mate, why do people still fall for this? I'm sorry, the protesters haven't fallen for this. That's the difference. The difference is that the protesters are wiser than Hassan is. They know that this is fucking bullshit. Like, what the fuck? A 5-year truce. What do you do in between? What are you going to do with all the concrete that comes in for rebuilding if you're still allowed to have political power? I mean, they've still said they want to keep doing October 7th again. They said they want to repeat it. They think Alexa Flood was base. They want to repeat it 1,000 times. They've never announced that intention. It seems like the people in Gaza just want them to surrender, like flat out. That's more or less what they're saying. I don't even like AP doing this. Some of these people don't understand what's being said. Apparent embrace of the 2-state solution. A 2-state solution implies that both states recognize each other's existence. That's a 2-state solution. Hamas has never said that they would recognize Israel. They say that they'll accept a state within the 67 borders, but even in their 2017 charter, they say that they would accept that, but not recognize Israel because they just see it as 2 states for now. They see it as give us statehood and apparently 5 years to get our act together so we can try and fuck you up again, basically. It's just a scam. And people in Israel obviously sees it for what it is. America sees it for what it is. Like, and now a lot of the protesters see it for what it is as well.
Klein is correct that no Samson code a statement about Hassan Piker Short, but so did Ethan. The full quote is now I'm going to sit here and tell you that Hassan loves all terrorists. But what I will say is that there isn't many he don't like. Now I'm going to sit here and tell you that Hassan... What? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Hassan loves all terrorists, but what I will say is that there isn't many he don't like. Okay, well, that's a derail.
This disinformation tracker is really on the non-partisan figuring out who's wrong about what train, isn't they? Definitely not just another drama frog dipshit channel that's bad faith as fuck that puts a globe emoji next to their fucking name and says that calls it a disinformation tracker pretending to be reasonable.
And I don't really care about that because I'm talking about something more important right now. I'm talking about the fucking news. As I was stating,
Israel doesn't recognize Palestine either, though, right? No, they don't. But that's why when there's when you're talking about 2-state solution, Israel would have given recognition right at the end. Like that was the idea. The idea was that Israel gives them, Israel gave the offer. Here's the borders. Here's the security arrangement. Here's the fucking airspace or whatever. Here's the refugees. Here's Jerusalem. Either Palestinians counteroffer or they say yes. They did neither. They just said no, or they just walked away. It's not even fair to say they said no. Arafat just kind of did his own thing. But yeah, the peace process would have ended in mutual recognition of states.
Very fact that Hamas has also
never
maintained a
ended.
position that they would disband as long as there was no more occupation, can be seen as like a veiled what's the term for it? Like a gamble, because they know that Israel will never stop, right? You can say that, but the reality
It's also it's so silly as well, because it's like, this is them in August. It's so contradictory. This one says they'll give up political power, but they won't lay down arms. What did the other one say? That they would disarm, but not give up their political wing. This is a leader of the Politburo, Bassem Naim, in Qatar. This is, which one is this one? I've seen this guy a bunch of times. Can never remember his name though. Who are you? Al-Haya? Khalil Al-Haya, yeah. So this guy says we'll lay down our arms, but we'll remain a political party. And then this one said we'll give up governance, but not our arms. Okay. Well, one person's sold in it.
is they've put it out there. And Israel has every opportunity to see it through if they chose to see it through.
Unless Hassan's got a tweet that shows us different about what offer he's referring to.
They wanted to, they could just go back to fucking bombing Gaza. No one's stopping them. So a bluff. Thank you. Yeah. Israel could call their bluff, and yet they have chosen not to do that. That's also something to consider here. The protest messages are simple, uncontroversial, and realistic. We want to live, end the war, genocide. We want a peace and normal life. Hamas must step down from government. Some sent reassuring messages like, we're not against Hamas, but against his rule.
Now, this guy, conversation is this line is taken massively out of context. Him saying we're not against Hamas, but against its rule. This is him saying that we're not against Hamas as in like, they're still Palestinian. They're still our neighbors. People who got recruited from Beit Lahia are, like they're Hamas, but they're also like our relatives and our brothers and sisters and all that shit. That's what he's saying. But for the rest of that interview that he gave to Al-Hadath, he's saying, he's like lambasting Hamas for not, for basically repeating the same mistake over and over again with resistance shit, but never getting a different result. Like he's basically doing like the definition of insanity meme on them. And they also say that they wanted, what did they say? That we don't want resistance. We don't want arms. We want white flags. Like the message from these village leaders is very clearly against Hamas ruling in any capacity, like militarily or politically. So this, we're not against Hamas, but against his rule. They're basically just saying like, well, yeah, they're still people. They're still part of our country. Like we don't want them all to leave the country. We don't want them all to leave. That's the context in which he's saying that. Look at the rest of the context. Let the Sudanese rule us. Let the Africans rule us. Whoever rules us, let them rule. We want to live with dignity. And also, I can even show you the full speech from these guys because I got it translated.
عن حماس اسمعنا عن حماس اسمعنا هاي المخاتير كلهم يا جماعة ايوه خليك هنا ايوه الناس مش عايزين حكم حماس انتهى.
This is them here.
خير الكلام ما قل ودل كل الناس اللي بتشوفهم هذول كل الناس الموجودين.
Yeah, so he's saying the rule of Hamas is done. People don't want Hamas. Everyone, the children, the mothers, the youth, we don't want Hamas. This government's destroyed our houses. They're killing us. All of us here, the elders, the young of Beit Lahia, all one thing. We're going to end Hamas's rule. And then the other guy, the other elder comes up and speaks. We raise our kids for 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then as soon as they're born, they're dead. There's no one left, no stone, no tree. We want whoever rules us, Sudanese, Africans, doesn't matter, as long as we live in dignity and respect. At the end, he says, what we're doing is wrong, wrong, wrong. We want to live, but we're not political. No Hamas, Fatah, Islamic Jihad, we just want to live. It's so... So the fact that they've decided to grab this as their one little fucking beacon of hope, like, oh, well, they don't want all Hamas members dead or kicked out of the country. Oh, wow, well done.
However, actors trying to exploit these protests to escalate the messaging to the next level, e.g. demanding disarmament, fully dismantling Hamas, foreign government in Gaza, whitewashing Israel, framing Hamas as the sole problem, are undermining the potential of these demonstrations. Many Gazans want Hamas to step down from government, even inside Hamas itself. Many want a permanent ceasefire, but full disarmament is a very sensitive topic. The mere existence of any form of weapons in Gaza is seen by many as a deterrent against the idea.
So he's being dishonest here, because that guy that they just clipped that sentence from specifically said they wanted to disarm. They spoke to Al-Hadath. He does this whole interview, which is not fully translated, but he's basically saying in this interview, is this the white run? No, it's not. It's here. I took down some notes on it, just like the gist. But yeah, they're saying that like Palestinians shouldn't be holding weapons. We should be holding white flags. We should hold white flags so the world supports us. We don't want weapons or resistance living among us. Like, yeah, this guy is clearly... He could not be more clear in terms of like his position on arms or like armed resistance or none of that. Like he wants it done. But they've used him up there to say, well, they're not actually against Hamas. Like, come on.
Staying in Gaza forever. Why the fuck would you put down your arms if Israel does not fully withdraw their troops? You cannot have sovereignty, especially when you're sitting in the ass cheeks of an apartheid state that stole your land from the jump, without fucking having a standing military. Full disarmament just makes it so that the Nakba is conducted over and over again. In many instances, the Nakba is being conducted. Full disarmament also looks a lot like the West Bank, and not the parts like...
That's fine that you think that, Hassan, but just admit you disagree with the protesters, because they don't seem to be saying that.
I'm not talking about Tulkarm, or I'm not talking about Jenin, but parts of the West Bank that Israel currently occupies and dominates. That's what it fucking looks like, okay? If you want to know what it looks like for the day-to-day existence of Palestinians being dominated under the cruel rule of the Israeli apartheid, look no further than the West Bank, where they, as recently as this past week, actually allowed right-wing settlers to go and engage in a lynch mob against Hamdan Bilal, who was literally sitting right here only a couple weeks prior to that, and then went on to win an Oscar for the documentary that he co-directed called No Other Land. The IDF turned around and arrested him. They detained him. They kidnapped him. It's fucking insane. The protest demands end the war. Hamas...
Yeah, and what can Hamas and Gaza do to help with that? I'm sorry, did October 7th help stop settlers in the West Bank? Like, what the fuck? If you're going to argue for resistance in the West Bank against people doing that shit, then go ahead. So that's a very different situation, though. But yeah, he can't do it. He can't really acknowledge what the protesters are saying because he just disagrees with them. He just doesn't think that they're being sensible.
Down from government have been largely accepted by Hamas, who has been calling for a permanent end to the war and accepted ceding governance to a technocratic PA Gov or an independent administrative committee. Israel says no to both. Even if Hamas is toppled by these governments, Israel is unlikely to accept an alternative.
This is one valid point here. The problem on the Israeli side is that right now Israel Katz is saying, oh yeah, let's keep protesting, we're awesome, based. But then also the only day after that Netanyahu has given any kind of approval to is Trump's, which is deport 2 million people and build a fucking American golf resort. So Elon Musk can eat cheesy hummus out of a bread bowl in front of bearded belly dancers. That bit is actually valid. Israel's complete lack of any kind of like morally feasible or practical vision is just like really, really problematic on this, because it's like, it's horrible. It's just, especially when you've got these protesters, and it seems like the protesters and the way that they're talking and the way that their rhetoric is that they are very open to any vision that is not Hamas rule and war with Israel. They seem to be open to anything. And meanwhile, Israel's just like, yeah, we kind of just want to kick all you out. Sorry. Like,
form of Palestinian governance, and IDF withdrawal from Gaza, or an end to the war. Netanyahu maintains a veto on all of the above, and depopulating Gaza remains Israel's priority. The more Israel talks about emptying out Gaza, the lesser those protests and potential, and more strength Hamas will draw by portraying itself as the only entity that can prevent or at least challenge this scenario and make the IDF stay in Gaza costly. Add to this, the continuation of Israeli attacks probably be the biggest factor in limiting the expansion of these demonstrations. Israeli mouthpieces called on Gazans to demonstrate in certain areas that were then bombed by the IDF. The genocide creates a rallying around the flag effect that strengthens Hamas's survival. What Israel failed to accomplish in 16 months of total war, it won't succeed to get by demanding starved and desperate...
he really does read, doesn't he, though? We've got this one partisan Twitter thread. Okay.
Gazans march to its tune. Popular demonstrations
Anything
usually
else?
succeed by disrupting life, shutting down the economy, making it impossible for the government to function and its leaders to move around. Israel did all of this and more already. There's nothing left protesters can do to pressure Hamas amid genocide. Ultimately, a true popular reckoning with Hamas can only happen once there is a ceasefire at the ballot boxes. Nonetheless, the protests are a natural right to Gazans who have been through hell on their own for 16 months. No one outside has a right to lecture them. Exactly. And I'm never going to sit here and be like, how dare they protest against Hamas? If that was the expectation that you had of me, you are fucking...
Yeah, I'd never lecture them. What I will do, though, is just very subtly massage their entire message and very conveniently ignore everything that they're saying so that I can just like turn it into a narrative that suits what I've been pushing for the last 16 months. Yeah, I see.
delusional. And I know that there were plenty of people who were waiting for the opportunity to be like, see, Hassan loves Hamas, but Palestinians fucking hate Hamas. That's not the case. It is an infinitely more complicated equation than the one that you present. And the reason why you're presenting this
See,
equation...
look what he's doing, though. He's completely fucking massaging the narrative. he's like telling you, he's just putting his own words into the mouths of the protesters. Yeah. He's doing the drop site version of the story.
Is because you want it to be true. You want it to be so that Israel is not the bad guy in the situation. Ask every Palestinian, whether they fucking despise Hamas or not, they will tell you that Israel is still the arch enemy. The only Palestinians that won't say that are Palestinians that get paid by the Israeli state, like the son of Hamas, who is a fucking Mossad agent, who is the most Islamophobic piece of shit terrorist I've ever encountered in my entire life. Okay? It's also guys like Aziz or whatever, the John Aziz, the peaceful poet, people that don't live in fucking Palestine, but will regularly do commentary that is defensive of Israel. So there it is. I question the integrity and the honesty of every single supposedly quote unquote pro-Palestinian voice out there who have spent zero time talking about the harrowing nature of the Israeli genocide and only spent time hyper-focusing on this. It is not an accident. It is by design. You are doing genocide apologia. That is the difference between someone like myself and someone like...
Oh God, he's really prepared for this, isn't he? He's really prepared the fucking spin on this one. The problem is that all these people posting these videos are people who, by the way, none of these people have ever said nothing about Israeli war crimes. Like they all have, whether it's that Al-Khatib guy or what, the Gazan who's lost like 20 family members, or Hamza, like the guy who lives in Germany. These people have all said stuff about Israeli war crimes. I've said lots of stuff about Israeli war crimes. Okay, it's just that these are the guys who are sharing all the videos coming out of Gaza from the protests and telling and like doing translations for you and telling you like what they're actually saying and showcasing what they're actually saying. Hassan has gone to a thread of someone who clearly is skeptical of them because he's suggesting that they might be like fucking outside Fatah influenced. And I was doing the little moral spin there. Okay. Why don't you just show us what the protesters are saying, Hassan?
The void. There's a million examples of this. People that never talk about like the Israeli pro-rape riots. People that never talk about the UN report that showed in 49 pages undeniable evidence that Israel is doing systematic rape and sexual assaults and sexual violence upon the Palestinian population. People that are always quiet when Israel is doing mass bombing campaigns, but the one time they're like, oh God, God save these Palestinians. But they won't even say Palestinians. They'll say Gazans, right? Because Palestine is not a real thing and Palestinians are not real people, but Gaza.
Oh, he does that one as well. Fuck me, man. How desperate do you have to be to say that people calling them Gazans means that they're fucking trying to erase Palestinian identity? What a fucking cunt. Oh my God. This was the guy, North Star Radio. How fucking white do you have to be? I'm sorry, like, I don't care. Your skin tone can be dark and all that, but it's like, but how fucking white to say that? Like, using Gazans instead of Palestinians is a form of pro-genocide speech. Me waiting for a beautifully bodacious Habibti hijabi. Bruh. Bro, you're white. You're very white. Painful, the unbearable whiteness of being. I know Hassan uses the word Gazans. Yes, he does. It's almost as if the situation in Gaza is insanely qualitatively and quantitatively different from the situation in the West Bank, which is why it might be worth, on occasion, specifying that we're talking about Gazans when we're talking about people who live in Gaza. Yeah. Perhaps.
People that live in Gaza, those people will talk about this cynically, and it's disgusting. The reality is that Palestinians have a right to do whatever the fuck they want in terms of political protest, in terms of saying fuck Hamas if they choose to do so. I will never turn around and fucking tell them like, how dare you speak out against Hamas? I don't give a shit.
No, you won't. You'll just massage their entire messaging and ignore what exactly they're saying. Okay. Yeah.
Okay? The fuck do you mean? I want Palestinians to be rid of the occupation so they can choose whoever they see fit to rule over them in a democratic process. That is the dream. If they choose Hamas, then that's one thing. If they choose someone else, then that's great. Fantastic. I don't care. I just want an end to the genocide. Okay? Can the same argument apply to anti-BB protests? Sure. I mean, I've talked about the anti-BB protests, and I've also talked about the secondary. It's ironic because it's exactly the same. A lot of the anti-BB protests, for example, don't actually want a fucking end to the full-scale ethnic cleansing operations. They just want their hostage family members back. They want the bombing to continue, but they just want the bombing to stop for the interim so they can pull out the fucking hostages. They certainly don't want an end to the occupation. And the same goes for the fucking anti-Hamas protesters. They want an end to the occupation more than anything else. They want an end to the occupation more than anything else. They don't like Hamas's governance. Okay? They might falsely believe that Israel will stop the death and destruction once Hamas...
Hamas is government. Bro, do you think they're upset because of fucking domestic policy? Do you think these guys are protesting because of fucking tax rates? Or the Hamas police system? Bro, listen to their messaging. They want Hamas to disarm and fucking stop because they understand that the reason they're all getting fucking bombed is because Hamas, very stupidly, and they'll say this, they'll use this exact fucking phrase, is that they gambled with Gazans' lives. That's what they did. They gambled with their lives. They went into fucking Israel on October 7th in the middle of a ceasefire, in the middle of a period that was actually fairly quiet as part of Sinwar's design. They did that. And then they ran the fuck back into Gaza, into the tunnels, underneath everyone's fucking houses and schools and hospitals and all our buildings, and said, hey, Israel, come get us. There's a lot of buildings, a lot of people in between us and you, but go for it. And then Israel obviously said yes, because every other country in the world would. They understand. The rhetoric of them is very clear. They may not like the domestic governance, bro. I'm sorry. In 2025, I don't think people in Gaza protesting against Hamas are upset with the latest Hamas budget, okay? I don't think that's the problem. Fuck.
Hamas dissolves, okay, without giving any sort of security assurances whatsoever. But ultimately, they all want the same thing. Every Palestinian...
Is it disinfo to say that Hamas offered to free everyone to stave off an invasion? Yes. The most they ever might have said is a very loose statement that suggested they would release all the civilian hostages. And the problem is, we can maybe find the video. Official October 9th, I think it was. October 9th, offer to release civilian hostages. There's a video of it. There's one of the guys actually doing an interview about that exact offer. November 9th? No, it was October 9th. Oh, wish I'd taken the video down. Come on. It might be actually... It might just be on the wiki. Hamas chief, 29th of October. It was really early. It was like October 9th, 10th, or 11th. Yeah, they said they wanted all Israeli hostages. No, is that right? Sinwar's first statement. This is after they realized they fucked up. This isn't the interview I was thinking of, but apparently Sinwar said... all prisoners in exchange for all captives held by the resistance. This is really... This is when Sinwar probably realized that he'd fucked up, I think. Because if you watch Sinwar's speeches before October 7th, he was clearly expecting a much more spontaneous intervention from people in Israel, West Bank, Lebanon, Yemen, Iran to join in. Obviously they didn't. Not nearly as much as he wanted them to. So I think he realized that they fucked up. This is such an unrealistic expectation, though. Why would you can you imagine? Like they cross into your country. So Israel's a sovereign state by international law. Sorry, they cross into your country. They kill over 1,000 people in less than 24 hours. They run back in with 250 hostages. They film themselves committing all kinds of war crimes and atrocities, brag about it, and then say, "Oh yeah, all our prisoners, including people who would have been taken prisoner on October 7th, give them all back." Because we're not going to jail them. We're going to just arm them up and try again. Because that's what Hamas does, right? That's what they always do. They take what they can from the ceasefire and then they try again later. What a stupid suggestion. There's another statement from it earlier from one of the Hamas spokespersons who's talking about the civilian hostages. But this would have been October 9th, 10th, or 11th, not. The civilian hostages thing is like a hearsay from one of the hostage group leaders who was linked to Netanyahu, but I'm trying to find the one. There's an interview. Hamas official interview offer hostage release October 10th. Is it 10th? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It couldn't have been November, was it? I remember because he was in a very fancy looking room with a big model of the Dome on the Rock.
Dr. Naeem, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. It's been...
Was it this one? Why do I know this name? Bassem Naeem. Why do I recognize this name? Oh.
Been 405 days since the war in Gaza began, and there doesn't seem to be an end to the conflict. We've seen the way Gaza has been completely devastated and the impact on the people of Gaza. We're also seeing that the Israeli hostages haven't been released, the ones who remain in Gaza at the moment. The ceasefire discussions have also gone nowhere. Can you just give us an update on where things are at as far as the ceasefire is concerned?
Thank you very much. The last well-defined broker deal was the deal of July 2nd. It was discussed in all details.
This one's too late. This is November 24. This is not the right one. Definitely not. Was it this one? NBC?
Open to releasing civilian hostages in the next hour, but that's only if Israel stops bombing Gaza immediately.
Let's get right to
This is
NBC
October
News Chief
17th.
Foreign correspondent Richard Engel.
But did they have the interview? Where's the official? Which official was it?
Said that much hostages. He said that they are willing to release the civilians. Is kind of a vague statement. The group said they're Hamas.
Gaza border. Richard, what do you know?
So I just spoke a short while ago with a senior Hamas official, and I was pressing him about this issue.
Oh, is this
of
guy
the
who spoke to him?
hostages.
Okay.
Yesterday, the head of Hamas's, the chief spokesman for Hamas's military wing, made an offer in a video saying that the group was willing to release all foreign hostages, but didn't explain the conditions. It was kind of a vague statement. The group said that if the ground conditions are right, that Hamas would release all foreigners. I called the senior official today. I said, could you give us some clarification? What are the conditions? What do field conditions mean? And he said that the offer still stands, that the group is willing to release all foreign hostages. And he told me what they are asking for is for the airstrikes on Gaza to stop. Then I said, well, what about the Israelis? He said this offer applies to all civilians, to all Israeli civilians, foreign civilians. And he said that what they need is for the airstrikes to stop. And I pressed him. I said, well, if you are so eager to release these hostages and you want to release the civilians, why not just let them go now? Why do the airstrikes need to stop? Find a safe place, let them go. He said it was logistically impossible, that there was no safe place, that they are under too much bombardment. I said, I don't find that believable. There must be some place where you can find a way to get the hostages out. Just drive them in a car, drop them at the border, let them go. He was somewhat annoyed by that. He said, are you negotiating with me or interviewing? I said, these people have families back home. They're our viewers. I want to know, why aren't you releasing them? And he said, why should we release them as long as Israel stops bombing? He said, if Israel stops bombing, they can be released in 1 hour. It is easy. So he said that within an hour of Israel stopping bombing, in theory, or immediately after Israel stops bombing, they would be willing to release civilian hostages, Israelis, and foreigners. Regarding the Israeli soldiers, because Hamas is also holding Israeli service members, he said that in exchange to release them, they want all Palestinians held in Israelis' jails to be released.
Yeah, they wanted all of them for the civilian hostages. I think it might have been this. No, I don't think it was that. This is a different one. This is... Wait, when did Sinwar say that statement? He said this on October 28th. It's interesting that he said that on October 28th in conjunction with Ghazi Hamad saying this on the 24th.
إسرائيل دولة لا مقام لها على أرضنا. إحنا الدولة لابد أن نزيلها لأنه بالفعل هي تعتبر كارثة أمنية وعسكرية وسياسية للأمة العربية والإسلامية، يجب أن تنتهي. لذلك احنا لا نخجل من نقول ذلك بكل قوة، انه إسرائيل لازم نأدبها وحنأدبها مرة ثانية وثالثة، ومش هذا حتكون طوفان الأقصى أول مرة، لا حتكون ثانية وثالثة ورابعة، لأنه احنا لدينا إصرار ولدينا قرار ولدينا إمكانيات.
I don't know why they've cut it off at the sides, but yeah, he's basically saying we're just going to keep attacking Israel over and over again as much as we can.
لكن كما قلت لك بدنا ندفع ثمن. نعم احنا مستعدين. معلش بدي أقول لك بشكل واضح، احنا اسمنا شعب الشهداء وبنفخر أن نقدم شهداء. احنا لا نريد أن نمس لا بالمدنيين ولا أن نلحق الأذى بهم، لكن أوقات لأنه في تعقيدات في الميدان صارت في منطقة موجودة، وكان هناك في احتفال وكان في سكان وفي منطقة واسعة ليست سهلة على امتداد تقريبا 40 كيلومتر. يجب أن ننتهي.
أن ينتهي وين؟
بس
بقطاع غزة؟
ينتهي إلى لا، بتكلم عنه كل الأراضي الفلسطينية.
And this guy's a senior official as well. It's like, you understand that taking these offers from Hamas seriously when their leaders just say fucking whatever all the time. Like their messaging is so contradictory, and it's intentional because they know that at some times they need to say things that work on a Western audience. They're very aware of that. Like Khalid Mashal speaks about it all the time. Yeah, it was a really ridiculous proposal.
Wants the same fucking thing, and it's the most understandable dream of all time: emancipation. To be free of genocide, to be free of occupation, to be free of domination. Who the fuck wouldn't want that? It's the most moral position you can arrive at. It's the most human position you can arrive at. The great man Ethan Klein is referring to as a well-known Palestinian traitor / collaborator who works with the Atlantic Council, validating collective punishment of war crime by focusing on frustrations resulting from a terror bombing campaign as genocide support.
A traitor and a collaborator. Wow. Bro, these guys actually want to be fucking Sinwar.
Traitor / collaborator who works with the Atlantic Council, validating collective punishment of war crime by focusing on frustrations resulting from a terror bombing campaign as genocide support.
Frustrations resulting from terror bombings. Okay.
Most respect for this great man. Oh my God, this dude did oh God, I don't know anything about this Ahmed Al-Khatib person.
Oh, I don't know anything
now that I
about
found
him.
out that he's at the fucking Atlantic Council and was working next to this fucking
Now that I know I can just pigeonhole him incredibly fucking quickly, I'm gonna like absolutely wipe the floor with this guy who I know nothing about. But now that I've seen that he's a collaborator because of the globe emoji disinformation tracker and because he's at the Atlantic Council, I don't give a fuck what this guy has to say. Fuck that.
Hasbara demon right here. Oh my lord.
Hasbara demon.
It's always dudes like this that are fucking
Wow. What a horrible piece of shit. Okay, so since Hasan didn't show you guys, I guess I can show you myself. Some of these protests, there's quite a lot of footage of it now. I got some of these translated yesterday, but I haven't overlaid them yet, so I'll just put it quiet. This one is basically saying, this is crowds coming out of Beit Lahia against the rule of Hamas. They're saying they're demanding a release for the hostages in exchange for their lives. Hamas is saying that the people should remain steadfast, but how can they remain steadfast when they're bleeding and dying? Hamas has to stop what's happening. Thousands have come out in Beit Lahia to deliver the message. We refuse Hamas rule and what's happening. Whoa. I don't think these guys are saying we want freedom. This translator is bullshit. They're saying Hamas are terrorists. So. Hamas at Habia. Chants in Han Yunis. Basically saying, what a shame you've sold Gaza for dollars. Another fucking Haya Hamas are terrorists. It's quite a popular chant from these protests. Absolute fucking giga chat in Han Yunis, the Palestinian Shakespeare over here. He's saying, for the first time, the Gazan people in Han Yunis are rising up in the face of oppression. The terrorist organization of Hamas from the outside land are gambling with the lives of our children, women and elders. Today, the barrier of oppression and fear is broken. Today is the day of the people. No voice is above the voice of the people. Today, the people are welded together. Down with Hamas. Hey, 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 Hamas are terrorists. They're saying Hamas are Shia. This guy's fucking voice. To every journalist, publish this. Spread the news of the suffering of the Gazan people. Today is the day of the people. The breaking of the barriers of fear. Today belongs to the righteous people. This was day 2 in Beit Lahia. They're saying to Hamdan and Zahar, who are 2 Hamas officials, senior officials, they're saying to Hamdan and Zahar, the decision is ours, as in like not yours. We want to decide what happens next, basically. Down with Hamas, fucking no to Al Jazeera. This is them. I think this was the preparatory, like they're marching towards the center where they're supposed to meet up in Beit Lahia. I think that's where that is. Misham Allah, Hamas Bara means for God's sake, Hamas out. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I might just make like a pinned fucking mega thread with all the I'll just grab all these videos and just put them in with translations above them. And if they're big translations, I'll just screenshot this and shove it in. But yeah, just so you guys know, it's these protests are anti-Hamas. Like through and through, these are anti-Hamas protests. I don't know why people are trying to frame it otherwise. Let's talk about drop site for a minute because I've got more of a conclusion on these guys now. It's just one anti-Hamas guy based. Okay. So drop site is the page of journalist Ryan Grimm, who used to be at The Intercept. I think it's also Jeremy Scahill is there as well. These two guys are known for publishing that piece that was supposed to be self-proclaimed a debunk of the New York Times and their article on Hamas's fairly widespread use of sexual violence during October 7th. Okay. They made this or joined this group more recently. The way they've covered this is interesting. So the way they've said this is they've said the protests erupted today across Gaza, including in Beit Lahia, Jabalia, and Khan Yunis, as Palestinians voiced their growing despair and rage toward Israel's continued indiscriminate attacks. The Israeli killing machine, a spokesperson for Central Gaza Relief Group who spoke to Dropsite News, explained. The demonstrations focused on demands to end Israel's genocide in Gaza and the immediate lifting of Israel's 3-week blockade. Protesters called for urgent action to stop the mass killing of civilians, the destruction of homes, schools, and hospitals, and to allow a vital humanitarian aid to enter. Then, chants such as "Stop the War" and "We Want to Live" filled the streets. You notice there's one particular chant that they're not, that was maybe a bit more prevalent than these ones that they haven't mentioned. Some protesters denounced Hamas and chanted against the group's rule in the Gaza Strip, where it has been officially the governing authority since the 2005 elections. Calls for Hamas to step down were heard, though the group has already committed to doing so if Israeli forces withdraw, as required under the previously agreed ceasefire deal and a national unity government is formed. So not only are they downplaying the anti-Hamas sentiment behind these protesters, which is very, very prevalent, like they are chanting, "Down with Hamas," to the negotiators and the leaders, Hamdan and Zahar, get out. We are decision makers now. Out, out, Hamas. Hamas is terrorist. Hamas is Shia, they're calling them. Not in a nice way, okay? These guys are very, like, predominantly, the speeches from the village Mukhtars, the elders, they are primarily anti-Hamas, and they're just saying this is like a side note. So already, little bit sussy. Second of all, they are lying about Hamas's offer for a ceasefire agreement. Hamas have given contradictory statements, and none of which are reliable. One saying that they would lay down their arms if an independent Palestinian state is established. Second one saying that they would give up governing Gaza but won't lay down their arms. Fact is Hamas wants they want any means to stay in, to keep a hold of power. If they're saying national unity government, again, who else is going to have arms in Gaza more so than Hamas? Like, Hamas, to their bones, okay, of their ideology and their praxis is to use opportunities to lie low and to regroup when they need to, but to try again later. That's always what they do. And what they've said since the very beginning is that they want to get all the breathing space they can to resume control over Gaza and to carry on attempting another October 7th again and again and again, because their ultimate goal is to destroy Israel. They have never said otherwise. So no, it's not as simple as them saying this. And then they published this statement, which is apparently from the elders and Mukhtars of Beit Lahia, a northern Gaza town where protests were particularly strong. I believe this might be where they originated. Widespread demand to the end of Israel's aggression. They reaffirmed their unwavering support for the Palestinian resistance while rejecting any political exploitation of the protests. So they show videos and they publish this statement here, apparently issued by the elders and Mukhtars of Beit Lahia in northern Gaza, saying that they unequivocally declare their firm stance alongside the legitimate Palestinian resistance, which means Hamas. What's interesting is that I don't know who these elders and muhtars are, what their names are, and they are completely contradicting every other bit of footage of these protests, okay? Including from Beit Lahia elders themselves. Because this is two of them speaking on the same day that Dropsite published that article. And I've got the translation here. It's on my Twitter as well. You can see they're predominantly, we don't want the rule of Hamas. Hamas is done. Straight to the point. None of us here, children, mothers, youth, don't want Hamas. They're blaming Hamas, the government, for destroying their house, for killing them. All of us stand together for one thing, and Hamas. Blaming Hamas for the fact that they have to raise their kids for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and then they die afterwards. Whoever rules us, Sudanese, Africans, it doesn't matter. We just want to live, as long as it's with dignity and respect. What we're doing is wrong, wrong, wrong. We want to live. Our movement is not political. We have no relation with Hamas, Fatah, or Islamic Jihad. We want to live, and that's it. This guy here also did an interview with a Saudi outlet where he said that he wanted no resistance among themselves in Beit Lahia. He doesn't want arms. He wants white flags, explicitly saying that. If you look at the protest from Beit Lahia, it's the same. It's anti-Hamas through and through. This is one of them from Beit Lahia. Directly attacking, this is preparation for the protest, directly attacking Hamas's two senior officials, the spokesperson and the original co-founder. So, whoever these other elders and muhtars of Beit Lahia are, first of all, they don't represent the protests, and they don't represent all of the elders and muhtars of Beit Lahia. So where does this statement come from? Well, I had a good look for it, and I think I've maybe got the answer. 2 hours earlier, this statement was also shared by Suppressed News, which is a pro-Hamas rag, basically, formatted slightly differently. And then about 15, well, exactly 18 minutes before that, that statement was published here by this local Gazan. I don't even know if he's a journalist. He doesn't call himself one, but he's put this out here. Notables and mayors of Beit Lahia, north of the Gaza Strip, it's the same thing. Openly, publicly standing with legitimate and just Palestinian resistance, etc. Very contradictory to the words of the protesters. Now, this guy through and through is a Hamas sympathizer. Through his Telegram, his Twitter, he is a complete and through and through Hamas sympathizer. Same with a little Glaze post here, Hania and Khaled Mashal having a good laugh together. He's got a pretty gross statement here about the hostage ceremony. Remember this one? The guy who was definitely not under duress when he had to kiss this guy's forehead. It is not a kiss, but a bomb that explodes in the face of all the immoral, dishonorable, and shameless people in the world. Our resistance with all pride and the rest on this planet are details. You can look through, actually, TOS, 1 second, let's go through his media sections. He has quite a lot of these. A bit of Sinwar glazing going on there. Abu Ubaida, Hania, where's the Al-Qassam brigades? Like this is Sinwar doing a kind of like a sermon or a prayer. Military spokesperson for Islamic Jihad, I think. Get well soon, hero. Hamas dude who lost his eye, I guess. You've established the argument against the nation of 2 billion Muslims. You were truly the source of our pride and glory with your souls and blessed bodies. We wrote epics of honor, heroism, and sacrifice. Yeah, this guy, this statement, the oldest example I can see of this statement that's used on Dropsite to apparently represent the protesters, even though it doesn't, is from a quite clear Hamas sympathizer. Which is interesting because the other people who have been doing that, who have been trying to reframe the messaging of these protests, are Al Jazeera. They've been doing the same thing. There was this guy, Anas al-Sharif, who the IDF seems to believe is a terrorist, pinch of salt, also just talking about the protests, but not once mentioning that they are anti-Hamas. To the point where a group of protesters were actually calling him out specifically.
الآن يهتفون برا 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 حماس تطلع برا من أمام مستشفى الحرب.
It's again out 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 Hamas get out, and they're saying here.
كما تشاهدون الناس عامة الناس تسأل عن أنس شريف مراسل قناة الجزيرة مراسل قناة الجزيرة عامة الشعب لا يريد.
That TV channel translation, he's just saying Al Jazeera.
قناة الجزيرة ها هم.
And they're saying there Anas al-Sharif. People are asking for him. People asking for the end of Hamas's rule. Northern Gaza. And there's a chant here about where's the press.
لا يجدون الصحافة ولا تغطية الأحداث بما يتعرضون له. خبوا الصحافة بالمستشفى. ها هو أحد المواطنين يقول أن الصحافة قناة الجزيرة لقد دخلت المستشفى.
Saying that the press and Al Jazeera, they're entering the hospital and trying to prevent coverage of the events because they don't want people to know that that's what these protests are about. That's why the desperate attempts from these people to try and spin it and to dilute and to omit the fact that they are primarily anti-Hamas protesters. Like, they just don't want to do it. They don't want people to know. And unfortunately, that same effort is being repeated, consciously or otherwise, by Ryan Grimm's drop site with a statement that is almost definitely fabricated. It's either fabricated or it's just from other local Mukhtars in Beit Lahia who don't have any representation for the protests. It's one or the other. It's either a statement that has nothing to do with the protests, really, that doesn't represent them in the slightest, or it's fabricated. And Hasan has been uncritically regurgitating this as well, because again, it's just, it makes people uncomfortable, right? It makes people uncomfortable to think that, you know, Israel's genociding Gaza, and they won't stop unless Gazans defend themselves. And Hamas are the defenders against the colonial apartheid, genocide, etc. So why the fuck would Gazans, after 16 months of Israeli bombing, why the fuck would they want Hamas out? It doesn't make it. It's like it's causing a massive dissonance to them. So they just have to try and massage the meaning of the protests. So yeah, pretty gross, pretty Orientalist, pretty fucking scummy. But there you go. They're in day 3 of the protests now. They seem bigger. They seem to be getting bigger, but there have also been a few developments, unfortunately. Hamas are starting to intervene a little bit, starting to intimidate protesters. There's at least one scene where they were shooting in the air to try and disperse the protesters. It doesn't quite show how successful they were in doing it, but they're definitely trying. Oh, also, turns out there's another elder from Beit Lahia who came out. Maybe it's this one. Maybe this is the one who said what Ryan Grimm was trying to push with Dropsite, or what Al Jazeera is saying. Osama Hamdan, what's on your feet? Osama Hamdan is the spokesperson for Hamas, I think. He's one of the spokespersons. He's saying, what's on our feet is purer than his mustache. One of the Mukhtars of Beit Lahia sends a strong message to the Hamas militia and a special message to the terrorist Osama Hamdan, who falsely accused the people of Beit Lahia of being agents sitting in dark rooms. Okay. So this elder's not a fan of them either. So I don't know. We're kind of running out of Beit Lahia elders who can correspond to Dropsite, who correspond to this in their messaging. So far, they're not showing their faces and they're not named. Bit weird, isn't it? Jabalia, day 3. If you want to tell me what they're saying here, I don't know. Oh, that's the Hamdan again. They're having to go at Hamdan. Jabalia is interesting because it's a refugee camp in Gaza and is in the north, and it is one of the. They're calling Hamdan a snake. Oh, there you go. Interesting development on r/Palestine. Hundreds of Palestinians protest in Gaza against the war. Al Jazeera. This post has been removed by the moderators of r/Palestine. Fuck that, man. Wow. Gaza is speaking. No, thank you. Excuse me. I want Hassan Piker speaking. What? What? Children chanting.
Again and again, we are
Okay.
talking to the world. Stop the war. We want to live our lives, normal lives. It's our right as it is mentioned in all international laws. We are not terrorists. We want to live in peace. Learn, draw, dance, and play. We don't want to die. We don't want to die.
It's very sad. Oh, this moron. I hate these people are so disgusting, man. Gazans, let me tell you exactly what I think about your little protest against Hamas, and I will say it loud and clear. I don't believe you. I don't buy your performance. I don't forgive you, and I never will. I don't care that you suddenly remembered you want to live, that all of a sudden you don't want people to die. Mark my words. Until my last breath, hell is not enough for you. There are no innocents in Gaza. Whoa, dude. The fuck? Give this person a paraglider. Go say it to them. Go say it right to their face. See what happens? Fuck me. Unhinged. This guy's complaining about Mehdi Hassan not following the protests. Oh, they are getting bigger, though. They seem like they're getting a lot more dense. Drop site news. Hey, he's on it. Note to Al Jazeera. Northern Gaza. Oh, this is from yesterday. Did Ramallah turn out? I have no idea. So yeah, there's quite a lot of it, and it's incredibly brave of them as well. So I'm just good luck to them, I guess. I don't see it dying anytime soon, personally, because it just seems like they're not the kind of people that can just get bored and go home, right? They don't have anything to go home to, most of them. So they don't really have that much incentive to give up. It's not like Hamas can bribe them with economic fucking improvements, right? Maybe. If it's all domestic policy, you know, maybe they just had to change the tax code a little bit, and that'll get them. Okay. I'll probably make more translations if I can before the end of today. Oh, what's this? Uh-oh. What we got here? Palestinian resistance factions. After the abject failure of all the plans and projects of the Zionist enemy against our Palestinian cause, whether by eliminating the Palestinian presence, displacement, or starvation, and after 17 months of the war of genocide waged by the fascist occupation against our people in the Gaza Strip, a group of the occupation's lackeys refuses to do anything but reveal their shame, their failure, their complicity, and their cooperation with the occupation against our people and their cause, insisting on blaming the resistance and exonerating the occupation, ignoring the fact that the Zionist extermination machine is working without stopping, even in the areas of security coordination, forgetting that the occupation considers the Palestinian existence itself to be the problem and not the resistance. Oh, no, 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 no. These suspicious people who are calling for the demise of the resistance and surrender have ignored important historical facts from our Palestinian history. After the 36 revolution was aborted by armed military wings affiliated with families, the result was the 1948 Palestinian Nakba. That's kind of true, but he's ignoring the fact that the militant forces still wanted to fight just before 48. It's like they were the ones who rejected the partition plan and started fighting. Okay. After withdrawal from the PLO in 82, the result was Sabra Shatila. Well, there's no denying that one. After the authority arrested Comrade Ahmed Sadat and his historic comrades who killed the criminal Rehavam Zaivi. In exchange for promises to lift the siege on Arafat, the result was the assassination of Arafat. Oh yeah, they think that Arafat was like poisoned by the Mossad or some shit. This is not really taking the second intifada into account, which is interesting. So that's what they're doing, though. Yeah, they're calling people... It's so Western. This language is so Western. Resistance is a legitimate right of our people by all means and methods, foremost among which is armed struggle, a right guaranteed by all international laws and covenants. The Zionist occupation is the basis and cause of all the harm, damage, and injury that has befallen our Palestinian people, and it alone bears responsibility and will pay a heavy price for its crimes. Our Palestinian families were, are, and will remain a safety valve against the occupation's projects and attempts to establish the local entities that cooperate with it. Those behind the suspicious movement caused the occupation to break down from its negotiating position in the last few hours because of its reliance on the success of these agents in stabbing the resistance in the back. Therefore, these suspects are responsible, just like the occupation, for the bloodshed of our people, and they will be treated accordingly. So everyone consents to the idea that these are anti-Hamas protests, right? The protesters agree that they're anti-Hamas protests, primarily. The resistance agrees that they're anti-Hamas protests, but drop site, Ryan Grimm, Hassan, they disagree. They don't consent. Okay, interesting. Cute. Fuck those guys, man. Ugh.